When I first started training in learning and development when I was about 19 years old, one of the first formulas I ever heard was that when you are communicating, body language makes up a large percentage of your communication, whereas words make up a very small percentage and tone also make up a very short percentage too. And I trotted that formula out. I think it was like 38% body language, 7% tone, and the rest words. But as I've gone through this career and I've built this business, words really do hold a lot of power. I'd say they hold even more power than that formula presents. But there is a missing element when we're thinking about how we communicate and how we are delivering a message, whether that be in a meeting, a briefing, a presentation, a keynote talk, a TED talk. Wherever you're doing that, you can use your body language and your gestures in a way that elevates what you're saying massively. There is a missing component that if you're not using this and you're not tapping into this, you might be missing out on that connection with your audience or them remembering what you're saying. And this specifically does apply to things like keynote talks, presentations that you might be delivering, TED Talks in particular. This type of stuff really does apply there. But I would say you can use this anywhere and you might naturally do this. But if you can do this in a really controlled way, then you can massively elevate the impact of what you're saying. So this is why words alone might be failing you and how to fix it with visual storytelling. My name is Helen Packham. This is Words That Change Lives, and I am all about helping leaders, consultants, and business owners maximize the impact of their words so they can change lives for the better. So let's dig into this episode. So you probably have felt at some point that the way that your words were being delivered wasn't landing the way that you wanted them to land. Despite speaking with passion, maybe, your message isn't hitting home. And it could be that it's not the words that are the problem. It might be in how you're delivering them. So in this episode, I'm going to explain why words alone often fall short, and how you can use visual storytelling to amplify your message so that this silent technique can 10 times your speaking impact. Visual storytelling is when you use gestures, body language, and facial expressions to complement the words that you're delivering to create a deeper, more engaging experience with your audience. And the thing is that humans are hardwired to respond to visuals. That's how we scoped out our environment in our caveman times, in our ancestral times. Visual cues and visual anchors were really important for us to take note, to remember things in our environment, to remember where things are, or the best places to hunt, where the berries were, and all of those sorts of things. And so we're hardwired to respond to visuals. And there's been research to show that when words are paired with gestures, it actually improves the retention of what you're saying by up to 60%. So gestures help activate our mirror neurons, which create a stronger emotional connection to the content and to the audience. So when you use visual storytelling, your audience not only hears your message, but they also feel it too. So let's have a look at why words alone might be failing you. Well, while they're powerful, of course, because this is all about words that change lives, they can only go so far. So because our brains are wired to process visuals much more quickly than text or speech alone, these studies have shown that gestures and body language improve comprehension and retention. And that is really important when we're delivering a message, especially through something like a keynote. If we're adopting visual storytelling through gestures, we might be increasing the impact of that, what it is you're delivering, and the way that people are retaining that and what they actually do with it. Because that's what we want to achieve from a keynote talk. We want people to take action as a result, to maybe change their mindset or their behavior or be inspired to do something. And so when we add in this extra essence to what we're doing in a conscious, controlled way, then we really can increase the potential of that being retained. So I want to give a few famous examples of visual storytelling. So Steve Jobs was really known in his keynotes for using simple gestures to bring his words to life. And I highly recommend you actually go and watch Steve Jobs speak if you haven't done already. So he did a load of famous product launches for iPhone, and holding up the iPhone wasn't just a technical demonstration. It was a visual statement that added weight to the idea that he was presenting. And he was very conscious about how he used those gestures when he was actually delivering those keynotes. And my favorite, who I reference a lot, Brené Brown's TED Talk, she used gestures in a really fantastic way to emphasize vulnerability. So when she talks about shame, give her a watch. She opens up her body. She uses her hands to explain the shape of a struggle and creates space. And her body language makes the concept of vulnerability more tangible and relatable. You see how subtle these things can be, but so powerful when they're used in conjunction with the right words, just shaping a struggle, opening yourself up to vulnerability. We're talking some things as subtle as this. When we consciously adopt these types of visual storytelling techniques, we can massively make an impact. So I've got a few. I adopted this more consciously in my speaking era when I was delivering leadership development training to executives in the corporate world. I did this all the time, but I was uncontrolled. I gesticulate naturally. I move my hands around, and my colleagues used to take the mickey out of me for gesticulating wildly in the classroom. And the thing is that when we do that, it can be uncontrolled. There's high controlled and uncontrolled presence. And when we have high controlled presence, we are consciously using gestures. When it's uncontrolled, we're not thinking about it, and that can come across like the sort of pacing tiger type of approach where you're just flailing and you're not necessarily using your movement in a conscious way to depict a story. So once I got hold of this, I loved using it. And in one particular talk that I've given a number of times, I talk about our ancestors and where storytelling started with our ancestors. And I talk about how we used to tell stories on the walls of caves, just like this. So what I'm doing there is asking you to imagine the wall of the cave here. And I'm visually drawing pictures on the wall of the cave. And it's these types of things, when punctuating your talk with these types of things, someone can use their imagination to imagine the wall of the cave as you're talking about that. Another example is when in one of my talks, a keynote talk that I gave, I talked about the past, the present, and the future. And I actually moved to the left-hand side of the stage when I was referencing the past, and I would refer to the past in this way. And then I would move to the middle of the stage and stand stock still and reference the present. And then I would move to the right-hand side of the stage and talk over here and address the future. This type of gesturing can put somebody thinking about the past, about the present, about the future. And that could be absolutely anything. It could be then and now. It could be the two opposites of a coin. It can be absolutely anything you want it to be, but you're gesturing over here for one thing and over here for another thing. Another technique that you can use is when you're actually addressing someone. So you might be addressing a client or a case study or some research that somebody did or a conversation you were having with someone, and you move to gesture that you're talking about that person. So another example is when you might be talking about breaking a big goal down into incremental steps, and you're taking small steps towards that goal. So you could do this to gesture the small steps, or you could actually take the small steps and then make them bigger and make them bigger. So there's obviously unlimited possibilities here, but it adds a visual layer. It adds a dynamic. I remember one of my talks, I'm referencing above the audience's heads about the hero's journey story. And I was talking about one particular hero's journey up here and another one up here. And you can see the audience are sort of referring their eyes up when they are imagining what I'm talking about. We've talked about slides in other episodes, but I will do more on slides because that also adds another layer to the story you're telling. But today I'm talking about the actual gestures that you are using. So I would really encourage you to think, okay, so in a current talk you have you filmed yourself? Has it been filmed? And have you observed what natural gestures you're already using? Because guaranteed you're going to be using some natural gestures. Then when you think about how that could be controlled, high controlled presence is being conscious of the way you're moving your hands. Think about what would look really good, if you are talking about an orchestra, could you do this or this? How can you depict the stories you're telling in a way that doesn't look gimmicky or over the top? We don't want to be telling the whole story, miming out the parts, but in some places where you really want to drive home a key message, a core message, or a golden nugget, you could include a gesture that can be as simple as opening yourself up wide, closing yourself down small, that can show people what it is that you're doing and hit home and anchor that in small steps or in big steps. So it's not just a technique, it's a way to bring your words to life. And when you use these in your body language, you create more memorable, impactful moments and experiences for your audience. So it's about telling the story so that they can see, feel, and understand. So next time you're preparing a talk, think about how you can incorporate visual storytelling into your delivery. And let me know, because I'd love to hear what you're doing and how you've consciously added these into your practice and your delivery. Contact me at hello@helenpackham.com. Or if you're interested in getting one-to-one support on this type of stuff, I love practically helping my clients. I meet them in person to do this type of thing, and we also do it online as well. It works both ways. So get in touch if it's something you're interested in, and otherwise, I look forward to seeing you next time.